Hello dear students, good morning everyone. Welcome back to online classes at APPA Public School. Okay dear students, as we discussed in the earlier class, means in the previous class, yes, we discussed about the chapter nationalism in India. So in that part we discussed about the introduction part of this chapter, then the first part of this chapter, that is the First World War, Khilafat issue, and the most important is that non-cooperation movement. Yes. So in the previous class we discussed the First World War and the introduction part of this chapter. Okay, before to go for the next part, yes, today we shall study about the initial movement which was conducted by Mr. Mahatma Gandhi ji. Yes, Champaran movement, Kheda movement, Ahmedabad movement, Rowlatt Act, and Jallianwala Bagh. Okay, see, as I told you that actually, as per my knowledge, so in the year of 2016, 17, 18 book, they gave a 1916 year of this Champaran movement. See, now actually yesterday I clarified it by getting a information from the CBSE board itself only, one of the social teacher of CBSE board. Actually, Champaran movement started in the year of 1916 and ended in the year of 1917. If the CBSE board asks the question, then you have to write this 1917 itself only. Because in my textbook, it means earlier, the old textbook they gave only 1916, but in the new textbook they printed 1917. Because of that reason, I got a clarification. So if the CBSE board asks a question, then you have to write 1917. Actually, they started. Yes, started in the year of 1916 but ended in the year of 1917. Okay, so in the previous class we discussed that the First World War, how it impacted on the Indian society. Yes, see here, the First World War 1914, yes, which it created a new kind of economic and political situation in the worldwide. So it led to a huge expenditure in the defense, and as well as which was financed by the war loans, and later they increased in the taxes. Because of that reason, custom duties were raised and income tax began to be introduced, and that tax was burden over on the home or on the Indian peoples, okay, or the Indians. Okay, and even we discussed how it impacted on the Indian society. See, the period between 1913 to 1918, prices of the food grains largely increased, which resulted into an economic critical situation for the home for the common people. What kind of problem they faced? The first problem, as I told you, that the peasants were suffered from paying a heavy tax and rent. Yes, they were facing a paying of what? Heavy rent and heavy tax. One problem they faced. Second, during this time, the villagers were forced. Yes, villagers were forced upon, or villagers were forced upon supply of soldiers, and this forceful recruitment caused a widespread among the villagers, and they started a fight against the Britishers. Yes, and third point, as I told you, that after the First World War, means in the year of 1918, after the war, foreign goods once again, yes, began to be imported, where to the India and or in the Indian market, is imported to the India and sold in the Indian market. Yes, and fourth, foreign capital once again began to be invested. Yes, foreign capital once again began to be invested. Because of this reason, what happened? The Indian industries loses their production, and even the Indian industries is completely collapsed. Yes, and the period between 1918 to 1919 and 1920 to 21, crops were failed in the many parts of the India. Yes, because of that reason, faced a acute shortage of food grains because of two reasons. One is an influenza epidemic, and second is the most important, that famine, means drought. Because of these two reasons they faced, and as a result, because of these two reasons, 12 to 13 million people were died because of only two reasons: famine and influenza epidemic. How many people were died? 12 to 13 million people were died. During this time, a new leaders began to be emerged in India. So among those, the first person who Mahatma Gandhi. Yes, Mahatma Gandhi emerged in India. Yes. Okay. See, Mahatma Gandhi ji, as I told you, also known as a Bapu, and M.K. Gandhi or Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi also known, and he was a father of our, yes, India, as we know that. Okay, and see, As I told you that Mahatma Gandhi returned to India from South Africa in the year of 1915. Yes, and while coming back, he brought a what? He brought a big cake. Yes or no? And already I told you what is this? Cake stands for. Yes, if we erase this E, then CAK. Yes, C for Champaran, A for Ahmedabad, and K for Kheda. Yes, so which it stand. Okay. Then what is satyagraha? We discussed. Yes, satyagraha was a mass agitation. Yes, satyagraha was mass agitation based on what? Based on a protest. Sorry. Yes, it was a mass agitation and protest based on the truth and non-violence. Yes, satyagraha was a mass agitation and protest based on the truth and non-violence is known as a what? Is known as a satyagraha. And even this satyagraha suggested a statement that if the cause was true, if the struggle was against injustice, then physical force was not necessary to fight against opponent. Yes, and satyagrahi could win the battle. Yes, Satyagrahi could win the battle very easily. Or without aggressive, yes, without aggressive, Satyagrahi could win the battle. And even Mahatma Gandhi believed in the what? Believed in the Dharma, which it unites all the Indians. Okay, finally, after arriving in India, Mahatma Gandhi initially he started his movement from where? From Champaranya. Yes. So in the year of 1916, Mahatma Gandhi directly traveled to the Champaranya to inspire the plantation peasants, because the plantation owners were forcing them to whom? To the peasants to grow more and more indigo, because this indigo was very valuable in the European market, and owners were forcing the peasants to sell it at a price fixed by the owners. So they refused. Then Gandhiji entered into this movement and said that not to work or not to grow the indigo till they meet your demands. Okay, finally succeeded Mahatma Gandhi. Yes, Champaranya movement. The next is about Kheda movement. Yes, see this Kheda movement. Yes, Kheda movement, which was held in the year of 1917. See here, in the year of 1917, yes, crops. So here, crops failed in Kheda district of Gujarat. Yes, the crops were failed, or in the year of 1917, crops failed in a Kheda district of Gujarat. Because of this reason, the peasants just faced a problem of shortage of food. Shortage of food, and as well as second problem, yes, plague, plague epidemic. Yes, in 1917, crops failed in a Kheda district of Gujarat. As a result, the peasants were faced, or the people were faced, a shortage of food and a plague epidemic. Because of this reason, the people of Kheda district, yes, the people of Kheda district asked the government to give a relaxation or a reduction in the revenue. But the British government, yes, but the British government did not give any relaxation or reduction in the revenue. Instead of that, the British government informed the zamindars to collect what? Collect the full tax from the home, full tax from the peoples. Yes, the government refused to give a relaxation and reduction in the revenue. And during this situation, Mahatma Gandhi yes, Gandhi entered into this movement. Yes, Gandhi entered into this movement, and Gandhi suggested to whom? To the people of Kheda district. Yes, suggested not to stop the strike till they meet your demands. Yes, Gandhiji said to the people, or suggested to the people, that not to not to do the work, or Gandhiji suggested to the home, to the people, supported peasants and advised them not to pay the tax till they meet your demands. And finally, when Gandhiji entered into this movement, the Britain government accepted to give a relaxation and reduction in the revenue. And British government issued an order that those who can pay the tax, or those who afford to pay the tax only can pay the tax, and rest all, yes, only those who can afford to pay the tax they can pay. So finally Mahatma Gandhi succeeded even in this Kheda movement, and here Mahatma Gandhi was accompanied by the whom? Accompanied by the S.V. Patel. Yes, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, because this movement was held in which state? Gujarat state. So that reason Mahatma Gandhi, yes, he was accompanied by the whom? Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, and Mahatma Gandhi succeeded even in this movement. Yes, the next movement is Ahmedabad movement. So this Ahmedabad movement, which was held, yes, Ahmedabad movement. Yes, Ahmedabad movement, which was held in the year of 1918. So here, in 1918, Mahatma Gandhi interfered into the strike or a dispute between workers and cotton mill owners. Yes, workers and cotton mill owners. So here, Mahatma Gandhi suggested the workers not to do the work or not to produce the goods till the cotton mill owners meet your demands. Means here workers were demanding increasing in the what? Increasing in the wages. Yes. So when the cotton mill owners accept your demands, then only start producing the goods. Gandhiji said to the whom? Gandhiji urged or said to the workers. So finally, cotton mill owners accepted to give a higher wages to the whom? To the workers. Then Mahatma Gandhiji even succeeded in this movement. See, when he returned from South Africa to India, initially wherever he conducted a movement, he succeeded in those movements only through the two what weapons. One is a truth and second is a non-violence. Yes. So this is about the three initial movement which was conducted by Mahatma Gandhiji. Yes, the Champaran movement in the year of 1917, then Kheda movement in the year of 1917, then Ahmedabad movement in the year of 1918. Okay, the next come to the point of Rowlatt Act. Yes, Rowlatt Act. So this Rowlatt Act was passed in the year of 1919 by the Imperial Legislative Council. Yes, the Rowlatt Act, which was passed in the year of 1919 by the Imperial Legislative Council to the opposition of Indian members. See, this Rowlatt Act, this Rowlatt Act gave the government enormous power, means plenty of power. Yes, the Rowlatt Act, which gave enormous or plenty of power to the government to suppress the political activity. To suppress the political activity of whom? Of Indians. Yes. The main intention of this Rowlatt Act, see, yes, this act gave the government enormous power or plenty of power to suppress the political activity of whom? Of the Indians. And even this act gave, yes, or according to this act, political prisoners, yes, political prisoners could detain in prison, could detain in prison without, yes, prison for 2 years, sorry, prison for 2 years without, without any trial. Yes, without producing them in front of the judge or in the court. Yes, according to this act, political prisoners could detain in a prison for 2 years without any trial. And by saying this, Mahatma Gandhi decided to fight against the whom? Fight against the Britishers. And even according to this Rowlatt Act, if Indians, yes, if 3 to 4 Indians were gathered. If they began to form a group, then without any intimation, the British police were arresting them because of this Rowlatt Act to suppress the political activity of Indians. Yes. So that reason Mahatma Gandhi decided to start a movement. So here, Gandhiji started Satyagraha movement, or Gandhiji started movements through the non-violent civil disobedience movement. So here, the Satyagraha movements or the rallies were held in a various part of the cities in India. Because of that reason, yes, workers were shut down the workers were left the railway workshops and closed down the shops. Means they began to show their support to the Mahatma Gandhiji's movement. And not only this, even not only the railway workers, even the other peoples also began to support Mahatma Gandhiji. And on 6th April, yes, on 6th April or the 6th April 1919, observed as a Satyagraha Day. It was observed as a what? It was observed as a Satyagraha Day because why they observed or why they considered this day as a Satyagraha Day? Because when people all over the country, yes, when people all over the country started fast and hartal. Yes, fast and hartal, they started at a time when on 6th April 1919. So that reason 6th April 1919 observed as a what Satyagraha Day. And even this was the first movement or this was the first countrywide agitation conducted by Mahatma Gandhiji, and this Satyagraha Day movement gave a foundation for which movement? Non-cooperation movement. Yes. So this Satyagraha Day, it was observed on 6th April 1919, and this movement gave a foundation for the which movement? Non-cooperation movement. And not only this, even see what happened here, to suppress the political activities or suppress the activities of the Indians, the British government began to arrest the local leaders. Began to arrest the whom? Arrest the local leaders of a respective places or the areas, districts or the states. Among those, yes, in Amritsar, many leaders were arrested. And Mahatma Gandhiji, yes, barred entering into the Delhi, or Mahatma Gandhiji banned entering into the Delhi. Because if he entered into the Delhi, then 100% he will start a Satyagraha movement in Delhi, and the British may go to their nation, to the England. So that reason they began to arrest the local leaders in Amritsar, and Mahatma Gandhiji was banned or barred to entry into the Delhi. Yes, and see on 10th April, 1919, yes, on 10th April 1919, a peaceful procession was going. Yes, a peaceful procession was going. Then suddenly the British policemen were ordered to fire on the peaceful procession. Then the policemen began to fire on the whom? On the peaceful procession. They began to fire on the whom? They began to fire on the peaceful procession, and that peaceful procession turned into a violent mode. And those provoked people began to widespread attack on the post office, yes, banks, schools, and etc. Yes, they began to attack on the post office, banks, schools, and etc. And this movement turned into an violent mode. By seeing this situation, General Dyer, yes, General Dyer imposed martial law. Yes, General Dyer imposed the martial law. Then what is this martial law? See, the martial law is a law of military government. And when the martial law is imposed, ordinary laws were suspended. Like freedom of rights or fundamental rights will be suspended. Okay, so martial law, which was imposed by the general there. See, when all these things were taking place, yes, all these things were taking place on 13th April. Yes, on 13th April, this moment was most important. On 13th April 1919, a Jallianwala Bagh incident or massacre took place. Yes. So on 13th April 1919, many people were gathered there in the Jallianwala Bagh or Jallianwala Bagh. So which were located in Amritsar in Punjab. Amritsar in Punjab. Yes. On 13th April 1919, many people were gathered in the Jallianwala Bagh. It was a park or a ground. Yes, Jallianwala Bagh in Amritsar in Punjab. See, here many people were gathered to oppose the which act? Rowlatt Act. Yes, Rowlatt Act. And some of the people were gathered to enjoy the what? Enjoy the Baisakhi fair. Yes. So here many people were gathered. Among those people, so some of the people were gathered to oppose the Rowlatt Act of 1919, and some of the people were gathered to enjoy the Baisakhi fair. But these people were not aware about the imposition of what? Martial law. Yes, these people were not aware about the imposition of a martial law. Then, see, when the people were gathered over there, more than 1,000 people or nearly 1,000 people were gathered in the Jallianwala Bagh ground. Then General Dyer entered into this ground, and this ground had only one door, that is entry and exit. Only one door, and it is surrounded by the full of wall, nearly 6 to 7 feet of wall. Yes, General Dyer entered into this ground and blocked the exit point. Yes, blocked the exit point and ordered the British police, means ordered the policemen to fire on those gathered people. Yes. On the ordinance or on the order of General Dyer, the British policemen began to fire on the gathered people. Yes. Among these, as a result, they did not mention in your CBSE book. See, among these 1,000 people, nearly 386 people were died. Yes. 386 people were died and more than 200 people got injured. Yes, injured. More than 200 people got injured. And see, remaining people were punished. Yes, remaining people were punished in such a way. The British, they began to hold the neck of Indians, and they began to rub their nose on the ground. And some of the people were asked to crawl on their elbows. Yes, here they began to ask them to crawl. And some of the people, clothes were removed and they were tagged to the poles, and they began to hit by the Britishers. Yes, and see, all these things were taking place by the General Dyer. And see why General Dyer conducted this movement, because to show them, yes, to show them or to produce a moral effect to create a fear of awe, or to create a fear among the Indians. Yes, and the one more point is here, because of this Jallianwala Bagh incident, the Britain government gave $470 of amount as a prize gift to the General Dyer. So by saying all these things, Rabindranath Tagore, he returned his knighthood award to the Britain government. So this is about Jallianwala Bagh incident. And the next part of this chapter, Khilafat movement, will continue in the next class. I hope everyone understood. And if you have any doubts, we will clarify your doubts in the doubt session. Okay, thank you. Have a nice day.